Hi, I wanted to welcome you to the Divorce Planning Podcast. I'm Carri Goldring, and I'm in the mortgage business, and I do planning pre-divorce for people who are either going to refinance their home, do an equity buyout, or plan to purchase a new home and make sure that everything in the divorce decree is worded properly and the numbers and the planning is taken care of so that you can go through the underwriting process smoothly. And I would like to introduce you to other people who are interested in the divorce planning process so you can get a real education of what's involved. Hope you enjoy. Hi, I want to introduce Angela, who is a certified divorce financial analyst, to everyone. And Angela, I thought if you would explain the difference between being a financial analyst, planner, to an individual or a person who's just looking for regular planning versus what do you do when it's somebody going through divorce? And obviously we don't have to get into a lot of detail, but just kind of explain the difference of how those things work, and kind of where the question is coming from is if someone's getting divorced, why wouldn't they go to their financial planner that they always have worked with?
Hi, Carri. Thanks for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure always to see you, and of course, an honor to be on your podcast. So, yeah, my name is Angela Zangarola. I'm with Quantum Wealth Strategies. I am a registered investment advisor as well as a certified divorce financial analyst. And your question is great. We get it all the time. So I like to use the analogy when we're talking in terms of financial planner, and there's so many terms these days. There's financial planner, financial advisor, investment advisor, and for the most part, they can all fall under the umbrella of a financial advisor. When we're looking at a CDFA or a certified divorce financial analyst, there is specific training that is required to go through exams, continuing education, to keep up on the changes and maybe the state guidelines. But the certified divorce financial analyst is more specific in their role in the finances in divorce. So in other words, if you're looking at a financial planner, investment advisor, financial advisor, whatever term you want to use it, your regular financial person. So when we're looking at in terms of the certified divorce financial analyst and a financial planner or advisor, the analogy that I like to use is quite simply, if you have a family doctor or family practitioner and you're going to them for a specific reoccurring ailment, maybe it's your knee, and you probably should have seen an orthopedic at that point, doctor or surgeon. That is how much more specific a CDFA role is than a financial advisor. Financial advisors help clients achieve, financial goals, whether they be short-term, long-term, and there's a whole wheelhouse of planning that goes along with financial planning, estate planning, taxes, all of that stuff. Whereas a certified divorce financial analyst is really honing in more on what are your assets, what are your liabilities, and how does the impact of the division of those being hopefully fair and equitable, that's the whole goal, and working along with other professionals like you, Carri, because a lot of times the largest asset most oftentimes is the home. And that is a major issue that needs to be addressed during the divorce. I'm sure you've seen it, Carri, but I mean, there's many times where everything is signed, everything is settled upon, and then it's like it's almost impossible to reverse something once it's black and white.
So you're so right, because to me, it's the planning part that is so important. And if you're only relying on one person's expertise, whether it's the divorce attorney or, in your example, the primary care physician, it's not enough to see the whole picture, because they have their own specific training. Mm-hmm. And you have your specific training and I have my specific training. And I always think of it as like a six-sided dice. Like you have to look at it from all six sides, because everything impacts everything else. Even if someone owned a home and it went up in value and they've only lived there for a year. Well, now we have capital gains taxes that could be charged. An attorney isn't set up to think
Right.
about that, or they're not set up to divide 401k, where maybe you would do that. And then me as a divorce mortgage person would know that that might take a long time to get because it needs to be court ordered, or somebody else would just say, oh, you're getting money from 401k. Great. And it doesn't always line up the right way. So you need all these professionals and all their expertise working together to make things happen. So I wanted to ask you too. So you're working there, obviously there's two parties in the divorce. Usually one of them has more experience or knowledge, or they think they have more knowledge of the finances. And then there always seems to be the part that doesn't.
Yes.
Do you handle each of them differently when you're looking at their information, or do you feel like the person who says they know things really doesn't know things?
Yeah. I can't tell you how frequently this happens, this comes up, and it's going to depend on the case. So I can represent an individual, meaning one party will come to me seeking the financial advice, the financial information, because they are in the dark or don't manage the finances, and they need to, they're wanting to know, are they going to be financially okay? What are they entitled to? What is going to be their future? What do they do? They don't even understand statements sometimes. When I'm working with a couple in a collaborative setting, acting as a financial neutral, and there is one that is, let's say, one party is more in charge of the finances than the other. Always, so I'll bring the couple in together as a unit, and I don't meet with them separately unless it's requested, but information is always shared as when I'm acting as a financial neutral. But I always bring the party that is maybe not into the finances so much in the marriage up to speed in a manner in which they can understand. This is different for every client. This is the part of financial planning that I think is underserved. That it's a behavioral thing. You must understand and know your client so that you know how to give them and they know how to receive the information properly. Because the way I explain it to you might be different than the way John needs it explained, right? And so that is a big part of the financial planning. And yes, you are correct. So a lot of times when the party that does have the knowledge or manages the finances, oftentimes you're right. They sometimes think they know what they're talking about, but actually don't, or will make suggestions maybe to their spouse as a division of, hey, you can take this asset, maybe this Roth, and I'll take my IRA. It has to be an equal or equitable. We have to be talking apples to apples, not apples to oranges. We're not going to offset a home, Carrie, you know this, with a 401k. There has to be some adjustments made, right? You mentioned capital gain, and I can't even tell you. I mean, how many times I have to defer to someone like you, thankfully, because how important is it that it has to be done in the process, not after it's been settled? And how often do you see that? So how often does it happen in the process where it's too late, or we see things that are written in the settlement agreement with regards to the house, or the marital home, or the refinancing, or how this asset, which happens to be the biggest in a lot of cases, gets divided, right? I mean, your role is so fundamental during the process, even in language. I mean, how many times have you and I talked about language?
Right. How things need to be written.
Right.
It's very true. And thank you for recognizing that, but it is super important. It's the planning. The planning is the important part. And sometimes I'll say to someone, oh, you can't afford to raise your loan amount up to give the equity that you need to your spouse trying to refinance, and we have to bump up how much you're refinancing because we want to include that equity buyout. Some people can't afford that monthly payment. Right. So now we're like, oh, what other assets do we have that we can trade? Right. But I'm not qualified to say can you give them more of your 401k, or can you give them
Right.
more of this bank statement, or can you take this debt that you were going to split? So you and I have to kind of go back and forth and go over numbers just so we can make it all make sense for both sides, to make sure everyone comes out as much of a winner as humanly possible.
Right. There's no question about that, and how important it is, especially the work that I do. I'm looking at cash flow. I'm not looking at just right now. I'm looking at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and the decisions that are made today with the division of the assets or the liabilities, therefore. So important to note that the decisions that somebody makes today, we as a certified divorce financial analysts look at not just what's happening today, but 5 and 10 and 20 years out, and the impact that it has on the client from those decisions. And your role is vital to mine, because when I'm doing a cash flow analysis, in other words, what is the money coming in and what is the money going out, income versus expenses. It might look great right now. It may be in the snapshot of 2 years, but maybe it doesn't after child support and spousal support falls off. And the rules change all the time, So when I got divorced, the rule for mortgage and income and the qualification for income was different then than it is now. Meaning that, I mean, I don't know if you want to address the 6 and 36, but we would have no way of knowing that, as that's your wheelhouse, but it's so critical when looking at, when maybe we can strategically place this client in a position where they can afford, I mean, you can probably give a really good example of that.
I even had an attorney that understood that 636 rule, where you have to receive support for 6 months and then it must continue for 3 years after closing. So in the attorney's head, they're saying 6 months, 3 years. So if you get support for 3.5 months, 3.5 years, we're good to go. We have an attorney that I don't normally work with that was writing their divorce decree, and they knew you had to receive support for 6 months and it must continue for 3 years. So they got the rule right, but then they wrote the decree up to say that they're going to get spousal support for 3 years and 6 months. Well, that's great that you I get it and I don't need your help, but where's the time period in between to look for a house or get mortgage approval? Or what if they didn't, I don't know, who knows? What if their credit score was low and they needed a month or two to get their credit score up? So even knowing the rules doesn't necessarily mean you understand the whole logistics of how it all works. And then I have some people who are doing the FHA loans, the government loans, and they only require 3 months of support.
And that's the other thing is the difference in loans. We would have no way of knowing, and I have to defer to you and it's so important, because you can't just go online and kind of get a quote. It's totally different.
Or what about even student loans now
that
are coming due, where they used to be on hold for a long time? So when they were on hold, depending on what type of loan program you were on, we either had to use 1% of the outstanding balance as a monthly payment, or 0.5% of the outstanding balance as a monthly payment. And now we have payments that are starting to show up on the credit report. So now we're using that. But if it's income based, then we have different set of rules, or if the payment is 0. So yeah, and every month we do get updates. We get mortgage updates from the different lenders, the Fannie Mae's, the Freddie Mac's, the FHA, the VA, the RD, whatever. Every month, new updates. This is what we're doing. We're getting more relaxed here. We're getting more strict here. So it does keep changing. So if someone wants to get a hold of you for either financial planning or divorce financial planning, how's the best way to find you?
Sure. Yeah, you can reach me at www.quantumwealthstrategies.com. You can call at 248-396-2593. You can email at Angela@quantumwealthstrategies.com. I am on social media, divorce and finances on Facebook, Instagram. And I'd be happy to chat with anyone who has any questions or concerns surrounding their finances, or, any concerns at all regarding
That
their
would
future with
that would
regards
be
to
great.
divorce and finances.
I so appreciate you doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Carrie. It's always a pleasure, and I love working alongside you.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast on divorce planning. I'm Carri Goldring, and I hope you have a great day.